Next we want to have a bit of a cover off is talking about cornering, which to me is the fun part of riding the motorcycle. People go looking for nice windy roads on the weekend. Old Pacific highways, cutty roads, these nice windy mountain sort of roads. It's also the most common bike accident. It's a single vehicle on a curve. Generally there's nobody else involved in that. Usually it's the rider setting themselves up for a bit of a disaster. Stayed up late watching Valentino and Casey doing it and got a bit carried away with it all the next day. I want to get halfway around the corner feeling like I'm going just slightly too slow, because it's really easy to speed up from there. It's very hard to slow down from mid-corner. We also need to actually slow down more at the beginning of the corner than it sort of feels natural to at first. I'll come back to that. So we've got this uphill left-hander with quite a few things going in our favour. It's a nice, dry, clean surface. It's uphill, which is also always a lot more confident than downhill. Downhill, Galston Gorge, all those hairpins, fairly uncomfortable. Wiseman's very likewise. So it's uphill, it's a left-hander, which gives us that positive camber that we were talking about in the room at the start of the day. So quite a few things going in our favour here, and it's also very clear. The vision's really good through the inside here, which is a bit unusual really on corners. Generally there's a corner here because there's something in the way there which stops us from seeing. That's why the corner's going around that way. So with that in mind, I'm going to get better vision through the curve by starting right out wide here. So I can see the corner from way back down there somewhere, and I should be starting to come up with a few ideas about the corner, trying to assess the corner, what's in my favour, what's against me. So it's uphill, it's the positive camber thing here. It's also fairly tight. So I should be slowing down and changing down gears before we actually lean into the corner there. I don't want to be halfway around the corner and using the brakes, or changing down a gear, which is sort of effectively the same as using the brakes, with the bike leaning over. Bike upright, lots of grip in the middle of the tyre. Get our braking and our gear changing done before we actually hit the little curve there. I want to slow down to the point that I can actually drive the bike through the corner with a little bit of positive throttle. I'm not saying I'm going to accelerate from this point through the corner, but I want a little bit of power on driving the bike. What we tend to do sometimes is sort of come up and at the very last minute we shut the throttle and drag the brake through the corner, sort of slowing down the rest of the way through there. I actually want to slow down before the corner so I can use that positive throttle through there. For this bike it will certainly be first gear. For any of these bikes it's going to be first or second gear from this one. Get it all sorted out nice and early, and then all you've got to think about is actually enjoying the corner. Starting right out wide, the same as we were talking about down the bottom there. Starting wide gives me maximum observation through the curve. I can see a lot further around the corner from here than I would be able to from there. Starting wide also makes it into less of a corner. Start from on the inside there, I've got to turn very tightly. Start from right out here, I've made it a much less acute sort of angle. Unless there's a car coming out of the corner, I wouldn't want to be on top of the centre line if there's a car coming. I'd move away a bit and I'd slow down a little bit more to compensate for that. If there's no one coming, this is where I'm going to be. This is also pretty much where I'm going to be all the rest of the way back around there on the straight sections. If there's nothing else going on, I'm going to be in what would be the right-hand wheel track for a car. That puts me well away from the vegetation and the stuff on the left, which is more likely to have a surprise. Might be an animal, might be somebody coming out of a driveway or something. All those things are more likely to come out of the left-hand side. So my general default position in the lane is going to be over on the right here. Right-hand wheel track for a car. Unless there's a car coming towards us, then we move away, move back out when we can. There's no car coming through this corner. I'm going to start right out wide here, and I should be off the brakes by about that point. Should be in an appropriate gear and at an appropriate speed. And then looking for the next arrow, which is the middle of the lane. Middle of the curve, middle of the lane. So now we're buffering away from this head-on zone, where the cars or bikes are going to tend to cut the corner here. Our lines have been repainted recently. You can see they're all already starting to wear away in this middle part of the curve. Before they were repainted, what we had was a double line which faded away up there somewhere and faded back in on the other side of the corner. People will tend to routinely cut this part of the curve. So I don't want to be right out here somewhere where I'm potentially going to meet that person. A bike will do it too. The bike will come around with the wheels on the right side of the line, but the bike and the rider and everything else is hanging over into that head-on zone. I don't want to meet that person, so middle of the curve, middle of the lane. Buffering away from the head-on zone, but not getting in here yet. And this is probably the most common mistake. Everybody tends to get the starting wide part fairly easily, but we turn in too early. Really commonly, we turn in early because we're worried about running wide on the exit. We think, oh, I'll turn in a bit earlier, that'll just give me something up my sleeve. What turning in early actually does is it sets me up to go this way. If we turn into the curve early, we're going to tend to run wide on the way out of the corner. Middle of the curve, middle of the lane. We're buffering the head-on zone, but we don't want to be in there yet, otherwise we're really setting ourselves up to go wide. wrong side of the road, or in the other direction it's off the road. So we're from the outside there, off the brakes, appropriate gear and speed, to the middle, buffering the head-on zone, and I want to finish nice and tight on the inside here. Finishing tight on this curve sets me up to start that one in the other direction. Usually after a left-hand corner, the next one goes right. So if I finish tight here, I can start wide for that one. If the next corner went left again, I'm also in a position I can adjust very easily. The bike wants to go back over there. So if I'm here, it's really easy to move back out that way. If I'm over there, it's much tougher to pull it back in this way. We've got to lean over further and it all gets a little bit tricky. So finishing tight gives us something up our sleeve. Sets us up to the alternate corner, puts it in a position we can adjust easily. It also gives us the rest of our lane to make a bit of a mistake in, or to straighten up and get on the brakes. I can't brake hard with the bike leaning over, but if I'm on the right corner path, I could now straighten up and use the rest of my lane to go upright and wash off speed. Same in the other direction, the less popular downhill right-hander. Adjusting speed and gears nice and early, starting right out wide here, middle of the curve, middle of the lane. Don't want to be over here on the head-on zone, and we also don't want to be here where we're really setting ourselves up to run wide on the exit there. The curve, middle of the lane, end of the curve, finishing nice and tight on the inside there. Left there's a car coming up the hill, but it's very easy to adjust it back out because the bike wants to go back out to the outside. So we always plan on finishing on the inside because we can easily adjust that out. If we're struggling out on the outside of the curve somewhere, it's very hard to pull it back in from there. So we slow down, change down, start wide, buffer, finish tight. Slow down, change down, start wide, buffer, finish tight. On the scooters, obviously not changing down, but we want to slow down enough on the brakes that we can actually have a little bit of power through the curve. Not accelerating through there, we accelerate out of the corner, not through it, but we want a little bit of power just driving the scooter along. The bike's always more stable with a little bit of power driving it rather than closing the throttle and posting through there. The other thing we can think about it here is shoulder in and turn your head. Look right through the curve and put your shoulder to the inside there. If you put your shoulder in, the bike actually stays a little bit more upright. You're staying more in the middle of the tyre. If you lean your body more, you lean the bike less. If you sit straight up and down on the bike, everything has to lean over further. A little bit more me lean and a bit less the bike lean keeps me in the middle of the tyre. I've got more grip. It means I could lean the bike over further if the corner tightened up and I had to lean over further. It also means I've got, on a very wet, slippery day. If it's really wet and slippery, I try and lean my body a lot and the bike as little as possible. Keeps me in the middle of the tyre where there's a little bit more grip for me. So we adjust our speed in a straight line. Set up that body position, shoulder in, turn your head, sitting well forward, holding on with your knees. From the outside to the middle to the inside. Start wide, buffer, finish tight. If you just watch on the inside of the curve here, I'll just do it a couple of times in each direction. And then we'll... So most common mistake we see, whether it's this course or whether it's our most advanced course, is people just starting their curve too early, and the more your speed starts to come up, the more likely you are to be just heading wide on the exit there. Which is sort of counterintuitive, because at first we turn in early because we're worried about running wide, and that just sets us up to do exactly that. So try and see the arrow from well back. As you're getting close to that one, try to be seeing the next one. As you're getting close to this one, try to be seeing the next one. Try not to be looking at that one, it's just gone under the wheels because it's already 10 feet behind you. Try to be looking at the one out in front of you all the time. Head and eyes up, looking through the curve, a little bit of shoulder in, off the brakes before you tip it in.
Even on the scooters, there's a little bit of...
Oh, definitely. A scooter will actually scrape more easily than a manual motorcycle will. It's actually closer to the ground, so I can actually, the scooter, I can scrape through this curve a lot easier than a motorcycle, just because everything's closer to the ground there. Yeah, I'm not going to put my knee down Casey Stoner style, but a little bit of shoulder in. Yeah. At a more advanced level, you even slide your bum across in the seat a little bit. You can still keep your knees together, but you can have more weight on the inside there. Come back and do a more advanced course after you please. We'll use the ball circuit and get a bit more adventurous down the other end there.